So, 1983 World Cup. Like the first defining memory that comes to my mind is Balwinder Singh Sandhu castling Gordon Greenwich. I mean, that was an insane delivery. I mean, yesterday we saw, Cummins bowl one delivery in the Ashes, and there's always talk about Shane Warne's ball of the century and all that. But I think for a generation of Indians who belong to that certain vintage, 1970s, 1980s, who kind of watched sport at that particular time, I think Sandhu's delivery to Greenwich was probably a bazooka, I would say.
I was 12 years old when the 1983 World Cup happened. It was one heady summer season for India. Kapil's Devils came from nowhere to lift the cup and go to the Lord's balcony. We talk so much about strategy these days, but Kapil, in one particular incident in the final, showed how smart he was. When Lloyd, who was injured, hobbled to the crease and was refused a runner, Kapil told Vinay the bowler to bowl a ball that the batsman could drive. And Vinay did the same, and Kapil accepted the offering at extra cover. It was one clear that Kapil was a smart captain. Not just inspirational, but very good in tactics and when to employ who.
So, in the late 70s and the early 80s, television was just coming into Chennai. It's quite unimaginable to an audience of today that those days there was no television, leave alone the internet and smartphones and all the gadgets that we live with today. And so the late 70s, black and white televisions were coming into homes in Chennai. But my father was adamant that we will not go in for a black and white television, we'll wait for a color television. And so that's how it happened that just before the 1982 Asiad, we got a color television, which is a Solidaire brand of television, which was very big those days. Solidaire and Dianora were the only two prominent brands in those days. And so we just got the TV before the Asiad, and during the 1982 Asiad, we were living in this large railway bungalow in Tamram on the outskirts of Chennai, and then our whole living room was like a small mini cinema hall with so many people gathered to watch the Asiad. But so that was during the day, but the Cricket World Cup was obviously late night because of the British time.
1983 is a great year in Indian sport. I was a schoolboy then, and that's the year India created history by winning the third Prudential World Cup. I was a schoolboy in Delhi and followed the matches on the radio.
I was 9 when the 83 World Cup happened. My early cricketing memories was 1981 when I think Keith Fletcher's England toured India. I think it was a boring, drawn series, but I remember snatches of the series. Then I kind of remember 83 when India toured Pakistan and Imran Khan was at his splendid best and India lost the series. But my very clear-cut memories of watching cricket on television was the 83 World Cup. Especially the semi-final against England, which India won, and then obviously the final against West Indies, where at that time we thought probably India, it's good enough that India's qualified for the final, but winning against the West Indies is near impossible because the kind of team they had. It was one of the greatest teams ever to play cricket, that particular West Indies team, and it was incredible the way India played through the World Cup in terms of the way they set it up, the way they progressed, and every time they were written off, they came back and they won matches. I remember the England semi-final where India beat them, where the players were running, and then that's the first time I saw a pitch invasion, all the fans running onto the pitch and then others running, carrying the stump as a souvenir and all that.
India's batting wasn't great and we finished up with a very subpar score, and I thought that's it, the West Indies are going to plaster us. And then I saw Gordon Greenwich, who usually smashes the bowling, shoulder arms to Balwinder Singh Sandhu, and who took his off stump away, and then that was tremendous. And then I thought, okay, maybe there's some hope. All of which I lost when Vivian Richards started thrashing the bowling around, and I kind of partially fell asleep thinking that's the end of it. And suddenly through my kind of consciousness, I saw Kapil Dev take that amazing catch. It was, he just ran and ran and took it over his shoulder, and it was such an electrifying moment. And I just shot up awake, and then I said, wow, that's an incredible catch. And then after that, the West Indies wickets started falling like 9 pins, and then before you knew it, India were the world champs. And I still recall that, unlike Chennai, India stadiums where you have this huge fencing to prevent the crowd running into the ground, there in the English stadium there was nothing, and huge crowd just surged into the field, and I could see Kapil and the other Indian team just grabbing the stumps and running into the pavilion, and then I just watched it till the end. Kapil Dev receiving the cup in the balcony of Lords, wearing his India blazer, and I mean that moment gave me goose pimple. It still does. I still recall vividly some of the scenes from that World Cup.
Those days, unlike now, live telecast was not a given. There was no live telecast of the league matches of India, the 6 league matches. There was telecast only from the semi-final and the final. England, we ran through England and went to the final. In the final, there was an interesting incident. After India had been bowled out for 183, West Indies was riding, West Indies, particularly Richards, was riding roughshod. That's when the satellite link failed, and there was no live telecast for nearly 45 minutes, if I remember right. And when live action was beamed again, West Indies from a strong position had slumped to 60 for 5, something like that. So that was the phase we Indian viewers couldn't watch. But that was the phase no Indian viewer would actually been so comfortable watching, because Richards was in prime form.
The other thing again, which is very mythical, is a couple days 175 against Zimbabwe. So there are two memories linked with the World Cup. One is watching the Cricket World Cup on an EC television. I don't know whether the brand is there. It's Electronics Corporation of India Television, ECTV, black and white, in my landlady's home at Pudupet. I mean, I grew up here, and thanks to her that I kind of acquired this love for the game at that point. And I was 9 years old, as I said earlier. And I remember seeing all these games, the semi-final and the final. But the game which we didn't see was the Zimbabwe game, which all of us should have seen, but whatever, I mean, the reasons it wasn't telecast, and Kapil Dev scored that incredible 175. And I remember reading about it in the Hindu. Mr. R. Mohan wrote the match reports. He covered the World Cup for the Hindu and the Sports Star. Incredible writing. So, absolute word pictures, and you kind of live the moment when you read those match reports. And for me, I had the privilege of, being at the venue in 2019 when I went to report the 2019 World Cup. I went to the venue, Tunbridge Wells. And a lot of people remember the knock. People were present at the venue, but there is no evidence. There is not even a score sheet, nothing. Everyone talks about it. Everyone talks about the way a few cars were threatened outside the venue because Kapil was hammering those massive sixes. And I think because no one saw it, except for a few correspondents who were at the venue. I think Mr. Mohan was there, G. Vishwanath was there, and a few others were there. And I think they were absolutely privileged to be there to see probably one of the greatest innings in cricketing history.
On this 40th occasion of this memorable win, I joined millions of Indian fans in wishing Kapil Dev and his merry men a wonderful, wonderful anniversary. May they continue to inspire us in the years to come. Thanks to this, I became a cricket memorabilia collector, and what you see next to me is a signed photograph containing the autographs of all the people who took part, including the manager. And then this is the program of the final between India and West Indies, and this was issued before the tournament started, the preview brochure. And inside, we have got the scorecard signed by the Indian captain, Kapil Dev. All in all, cherished memorabilia in my collection, which I plan to have it as a legacy.
People say, it's a team, it's a squad and all that, but you got to give enormous credit to Kapil for the way he won the World Cup for India.
The cricket renaissance, or whatever, cricket uprising in India, and it's now become almost like a religion. Kapil's Devils are the main reason why cricket in India is thriving and is the most popular sport in the country.